Stiff knees when you stand up? A dull ache in your back that's become your constant companion? Many men believe this is an unavoidable part of getting older. But what if the key to stronger bones and more flexible joints isn't some miracle cure, but a deeper understanding of what your body is truly asking for? We're going to go beyond the headlines and explore the science of how specific nutrients, from the well-known vitamin D to the underappreciated vitamin K2, truly work to fortify your body's framework. This isn't just about a list of pills to take. It's about understanding the elegant system within you and learning how to support it for a stronger, more mobile future. To truly grasp how to care for our bones and joints, we first need to appreciate the marvel of engineering they represent. It's easy to think of our skeleton as something static, like the wooden frame of a house that's built once and then simply stands there. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Your bones are dynamic, living organs. Imagine a grand, historic cathedral that is centuries old but looks immaculate. This is because it has a permanent, live-in crew of master artisans, masons, restorers, and engineers who are constantly at work. Every single day, they inspect the structure, chip away tiny bits of weathered stone, and meticulously replace them with new, strong material. Your bones are exactly like this cathedral. This constant process of renewal, called bone remodeling, ensures your skeleton remains strong and can repair the microscopic damage that occurs from daily life. This is a crucial concept. Your bones are not just a scaffold, they are a living, regenerating system. Now, let's consider the joints, the elegant points of connection that allow for movement. A joint is where two bones meet, but it's the structures in between that are the true heroes. The ends of these bones are capped with a smooth, tough, and slippery material called cartilage. Its job is to act as a high-performance shock absorber, allowing your bones to glide past each other with almost no friction. To help with this, the entire joint is enclosed in a capsule filled with a special lubricant called synovial fluid. Think of the massive, heavy, and incredibly precise hinge on a bank vault door. It's designed to swing a multi-ton weight effortlessly and silently, over and over, for decades. That is the level of engineering present in your knees, hips, and shoulders. Understanding this complex system is the first step, because bone health and joint health are not two separate conversations. They are deeply interconnected. A weakening bone structure can subtly change your posture and the way you walk, placing new and abnormal stress on your joints. Conversely, a painful, inflamed joint can lead to inactivity, and a lack of movement is a direct signal to the body to stop investing resources in maintaining strong bones, creating a downward cycle. Supporting one means supporting the other. For many decades of a man's life, that internal construction crew we talked about, the one maintaining the cathedral of your skeleton, operates in a state of perfect equilibrium. The cells that break down old bone, called osteoclasts, work in harmony with the cells that build new bone, called osteoblasts. The amount of bone being removed is almost perfectly matched by the amount of new bone being laid down. However, as men move past the age of 60, this delicate balance can begin to shift. It's a very gradual process, not an overnight event. Hormonal changes, particularly the slow and steady decline in testosterone levels, play a significant role. Testosterone, among its many functions, sends signals that encourage the bone-building osteoblasts. As these signals become a little weaker, the bone-resorbing osteoclasts can start to gain the upper hand. The crew taking away old stone begins to work just a fraction faster than the crew laying down new stone. Over the course of a year, the difference is minuscule, but over 5, 10, or 15 years, this can lead to a significant net loss of bone mass. A similar, slow-moving story unfolds within our joints. The cartilage that caps our bones is a remarkable substance, but it has what you might call an Achilles heel. It has almost no direct blood supply. This means its ability to repair itself is extraordinarily slow. Nutrients have to seep into it from the surrounding joint fluid rather than being delivered directly. So, throughout your life, the minor wear and damage to your cartilage is repaired very, very slowly. As we age, the structure of the collagen within the cartilage also changes, making it a little less resilient and a little more brittle. The cells that produce synovial fluid may become less efficient, reducing the quality of that essential lubrication. It's a bit like a high-quality road surface that, after 50 years of heavy traffic and exposure to the elements, starts to develop microscopic cracks and becomes less smooth. The body's repair crews are still on the job, but they can't keep up with the accumulated wear. It is incredibly important to state that this is a normal part of the human aging process. It is not a sign of failure or that you've done something wrong. The good news is that while we can't stop time, we absolutely can provide our body with the right tools and materials to slow these processes down and manage them effectively. Understanding what's happening under the surface is the first, most powerful step. While they are often mentioned in the same breath and can coexist, it is vital to understand that osteoporosis and osteoarthritis are two very different conditions affecting your body's framework. Getting this distinction right is key to understanding how to approach them. First, let's talk about osteoporosis. This is often called the silent disease because it can develop for years without any symptoms until a sudden fracture occurs. Osteoporosis is not a disease of painful bones. It's a disease of bone quantity and structure. The bone itself isn't necessarily unhealthy, there's just less of it. The internal architecture of the bone, which in its prime looks like a dense, tightly woven sea sponge, begins to change. The spaces within the sponge get larger and the solid struts get thinner. The bone becomes porous, lighter, and much more fragile. Imagine a sturdy wooden beam. Osteoporosis is like hollowing out that beam from the inside. It looks the same on the surface, but its structural integrity is severely compromised, and it can break under stresses it would have easily handled before. This is why a simple fall from standing height, or even a strong cough, can cause a fracture in someone with significant osteoporosis. Osteoarthritis, on the other hand, is a disease of the joints. If osteoporosis is about the bone's internal structure, osteoarthritis is about the surfaces where bones meet. It is fundamentally a problem of cartilage breakdown. For a long time, it was described simply as wear and tear, as if our joints were purely mechanical parts that just wore out. We now understand this is an oversimplification. Osteoarthritis is an active disease process. It begins with the cartilage becoming damaged or thin, but then the body mounts a response. It tries to repair the damage, but the process is often flawed. This can lead to low-grade inflammation within the joint, which can further damage the cartilage and irritate the joint lining, causing the classic symptoms of pain, stiffness, and swelling. Think of the tread on a high-quality car tire. Over tens of thousands of miles, the tread naturally wears down. But osteoarthritis is more than that. It's as if, as the tread wears, the tire's internal structure also starts to react, creating bumps and friction, making the ride progressively rougher and more uncomfortable. One of the main challenges, especially for men, is that the early signs of both conditions are often dismissed. A bit of morning stiffness, a slight loss of height, or an ache after a day of yard work is too easily chalked up to just getting older. This societal expectation to tough it out can unfortunately lead to a delay in diagnosis and management, which is why proactive knowledge is so crucial. Nutrient number 1, vitamin D, the master key for calcium. If we're going to rebuild and maintain our body's framework, we need raw materials. The most famous of these is calcium. But here is a fact of paramount importance. You can eat a diet rich in calcium, take calcium supplements, and drink gallons of fortified milk, but if you are deficient in vitamin D, a huge portion of that calcium will pass straight through your body and used. Vitamin D's primary role in bone health is to function as the master key for calcium absorption. Imagine your intestines are a secure facility, and calcium is the vital supply that needs to get inside. The walls of the intestines have locked gates, or channels, that calcium needs to pass through to enter the bloodstream. Vitamin D is the specific, high-security key that unlocks these gates. When vitamin D is present, it signals the cells of the intestinal wall to open these channels and actively pull calcium from your food into your blood. Without vitamin D, the gates remain largely locked, and the valuable calcium is simply excreted. This makes it, arguably, the single most critical nutrient for preventing osteoporosis, as its absence renders calcium almost useless. For most of human history, we made all the vitamin D we needed from the sun. Ultraviolet B rays from sunlight strike the skin and convert a type of cholesterol into a precursor form of vitamin D. However, relying on the sun becomes problematic as we get older for two main reasons. First, the skin of a 70-year-old is up to 4 times less efficient at producing vitamin D from the same amount of sun exposure as the skin of a 20-year-old. The machinery in the factory just doesn't work as well anymore. Second, lifestyle factors often change. Older adults may spend more time indoors or are more likely to use sunscreen diligently, which blocks the UVB rays necessary for production. While some foods contain vitamin D, like fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, cod liver oil, and fortified foods like milk and cereals, it is very difficult to get the optimal amount from diet alone. For this reason, many health organizations, including the National Institutes of Health, recommend that older adults consider supplementation. A typical recommendation for men over 70 is 800 international units, IU, per day, but this is a general guideline. The only way to know your true status is through a simple blood test called a 25-hydroxyvitamin D test. This allows your doctor to recommend a dosage tailored specifically to your body's needs, ensuring you have the master key to make use of all the essential building blocks for your bones. Nutrient number 2, vitamin K2, the intelligent traffic controller. If vitamin D is the key that lets calcium into the body, vitamin K2 is the intelligent traffic controller that tells that calcium exactly where to go. This is a piece of the bone health puzzle that has only been widely understood in recent years, and it is critically important. For a long time, scientists mainly focused on vitamin K1, which is found in leafy green vegetables and is essential for proper blood clotting. Vitamin K2 is a different molecule found in different foods with a very different job. Its primary function is to manage calcium distribution throughout the body, ensuring it ends up in the places you want it, your bones and teeth, and stays out of the places you don't, your arteries and soft tissues. It accomplishes this remarkable feat by activating specific proteins. Here's how this elegant system works. Vitamin K2 flips the on switch for a protein called osteocalcin. Once activated, osteocalcin's job is to bind with calcium in the bloodstream and escort it directly into your bone matrix, effectively cementing it into your skeleton where it contributes to density and strength. At the same time, vitamin K2 activates another protein called matrix GLA protein, or MGP. The job of MGP is to act as a security guard for your cardiovascular system. It patrols the walls of your arteries and other soft tissues, and its primary function is to remove any free-floating calcium, preventing it from being deposited and forming dangerous calcified plaques. So, you can see the brilliant synergy. Vitamin K2 ensures the good stuff gets into your bones, while simultaneously preventing that same stuff from causing hardening of the arteries. An analogy might be a construction project. Vitamin D is the purchasing manager who orders and receives the truckloads of cement, calcium. But vitamin K2 is the site foreman who directs the workers to pour that cement into the foundation, your bones, and strictly forbids them from dumping it on the access roads, your arteries. This is why a strategy focused only on calcium and vitamin D is incomplete. Without sufficient vitamin K2, you have no guarantee that the calcium you're absorbing is actually being used to strengthen your bones. The best food sources of K2 are fermented foods, with the Japanese dish natto, fermented soybeans, being the richest source by far. Other good sources include certain aged cheeses like Gouda and Brie, as well as egg yolks and the dark meat of chicken. Nutrient number 3, vitamin C, the unsung hero of collagen production. When most people think of vitamin C, they think of the immune system, fighting off colds, and citrus fruits. While it is certainly crucial for those things, its role in the structural integrity of your body, and particularly your bones and joints, is profoundly important and often overlooked. Vitamin C is an essential cofactor for the synthesis of collagen. Collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body, and it acts as the primary scaffolding or framework for virtually all of our tissues. If we continue our construction analogy, where calcium is the concrete that provides compressive strength to our bones, then collagen is the network of twisted steel cables, or rebar, that runs through the concrete. This collagenous rebar gives our bones their tensile strength and flexibility. Without it, bones would be as dense as rock, but also as brittle as chalk, shattering easily under stress. A bone that is rich in both calcium and collagen is both strong and resilient. Vitamin C is the essential ingredient that allows the body's construction workers to forge and weave these steel cables. A deficiency in vitamin C directly impairs the body's ability to produce high-quality collagen, leading to weaker, more fracture-prone bones. This role is perhaps even more obvious when we look at our joints. The cartilage that cushions our joints is composed primarily of collagen and water. It is the dense, cross-linked structure of the collagen fibers that gives cartilage its toughness and its ability to absorb shock. When vitamin C levels are inadequate, the body cannot effectively repair and maintain this collagen matrix. Over time, this can contribute to the cartilage becoming weaker and degrading more quickly, which is a central feature of osteoarthritis. Therefore, ensuring an adequate intake of vitamin C is a foundational step for both bone density and joint integrity. The good news is that it's relatively easy to get from our diet. While citrus fruits are famous for their vitamin C content, other sources are even more potent. A single red bell pepper can contain more than twice the vitamin C of an orange. Other excellent sources include broccoli, strawberries, kiwi, and Brussels sprouts. Focusing on a diet rich in these colorful fruits and vegetables provides your body with the constant supply it needs to keep building and maintaining that vital collagen scaffolding. Nutrient number 4, calcium, the essential building block, with a catch. There is no discussion of bone health without calcium, and for good reason. It is the primary mineral that makes up the crystal structure of our bones and teeth, providing them with their hardness and density. Roughly 99% of all the calcium in your body is stored in your skeleton, which also acts as a reservoir. If the body needs calcium for other critical functions, like muscle contraction or nerve transmission, and it isn't getting enough from your diet, it will take it directly from your bones. This is why a consistent dietary intake is so crucial. If you are constantly making withdrawals from the bone bank without making deposits, the structure will inevitably weaken over time. So, the importance of calcium is not in question. However, the modern approach to it has become much more nuanced. The old advice was simple: consume more calcium. We now understand this is only part of the story. And there's a significant catch. The effectiveness of the calcium you consume is entirely dependent on the other nutrients we have already discussed. As we've established, without sufficient vitamin D, that calcium can't even get into your bloodstream efficiently. And without sufficient vitamin K2, the calcium that does get absorbed might not be directed into your bones and could potentially be deposited in your arteries. This has led to something researchers call the calcium paradox. Some studies have raised concerns that high-dose calcium supplementation, particularly when taken in isolation without its cofactors, might be associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular events. The theory is that a sudden flood of calcium into the bloodstream without the K2 traffic controller to manage it could contribute to arterial calcification. This is why the modern, more informed recommendation is always food first. A diet that includes calcium-rich foods is preferable because the calcium is consumed along with a host of other nutrients, and it is absorbed more slowly. Excellent sources include dairy products like yogurt and cheese, but also non-dairy sources like canned sardines and salmon with the soft, edible bones, leafy greens like kale and collard greens, and fortified foods like certain orange juices and plant-based milks. Supplements should be considered a second line of defense, used to fill a known dietary gap and always discussed with a doctor. They may recommend specific forms, like calcium citrate, which is more easily absorbed, and advise taking it in smaller, divided doses to avoid overwhelming the body's management system. Nutrient number 5, magnesium, the catalyst for bone health. If vitamin D is the master key and K2 is the traffic controller, then magnesium is the master electrician who makes sure all the power is on and the machinery is working correctly. It is one of the most underrated minerals for bone health, yet it is involved in hundreds of enzymatic reactions throughout the body, many of which are directly related to the skeletal system. To start, a large portion of your body's total magnesium, over 60%, is stored directly in your bones. It is not just sitting there. It is part of the physical crystal lattice that gives bone its structure. Studies have shown that higher magnesium intake is directly correlated with higher bone mineral density. When magnesium levels are low, the bone crystals that form are larger and more imperfect, potentially making the bone more brittle. Perhaps its most critical role, however, is its relationship with vitamin D. Here is a crucial piece of information. Your body cannot use vitamin D without magnesium. The vitamin D you get from the sun or a supplement is in an inactive storage form. To become active and perform its job of absorbing calcium, it must be converted by enzymes in the liver and kidneys. Every single one of these essential enzymes requires magnesium to function. Therefore, if you are deficient in magnesium, you can be taking high doses of vitamin D, but your body will be unable to flip the switch to turn it on. The master key remains in your pocket, unable to be used. This is a common reason why some people remain vitamin D deficient despite supplementation. Their lack of magnesium is the bottleneck. Furthermore, magnesium also helps regulate parathyroid hormone and calcitonin, two key hormones that control the activity of the bone-building and bone-resorbing cells. It is truly a master regulator in the background. Unfortunately, many modern diets, which are often high in processed foods, are chronically low in magnesium. The best sources are whole foods, nuts like almonds and cashews, seeds like pumpkin and chia, whole grains, legumes like black beans, and dark leafy greens like spinach. Ensuring your diet is rich in these foods is like ensuring the entire power grid for your bone-building factory is fully operational. The special mention omega-3 fatty acids, the body's fire department. Now, we must address a key component mentioned in our opening hook, omega-3 fatty acids. It's important to clarify that these are not vitamins or minerals. They are a special type of polyunsaturated fat. However, their role in maintaining comfortable, functional joints is so significant that any discussion of skeletal health would be incomplete without them. Their primary benefit comes down to one powerful function. They are potent anti-inflammatory agents. To understand why this matters, we need to think about the nature of the pain in osteoarthritis. While some discomfort comes from the mechanical issue of worn cartilage, a huge component of the pain, stiffness, and swelling comes from chronic, low-grade inflammation within the joint capsule. Your body's immune system is in a state of constant, low-level alert, which perpetuates the cycle of cartilage damage and pain. This is where omega-3s come in. They act as the body's internal fire department. Within your body, there are pathways that create inflammatory molecules and pathways that create anti-inflammatory molecules. The type of fats you eat heavily influences which pathway is more dominant. A diet high in certain other fats, like omega-6s found in many vegetable oils and processed foods, tends to promote the inflammatory pathway. Omega-3 fatty acids, on the other hand, are the direct precursors for a family of powerful, inflammation-resolving molecules called resolvins and protectins. When you consume enough omega-3s, you are giving your body the raw materials it needs to manufacture its own anti-inflammatory compounds. This helps to cool down the chronic fire within your joints, leading to reduced pain, less stiffness, and improved function. It doesn't rebuild cartilage, but by managing the inflammation, it can dramatically improve quality of life and slow the disease's progression. The most potent sources of the beneficial omega-3s, known as EPA and DHA, are found in fatty, cold-water fish like salmon, mackerel, herring, and sardines. Plant-based sources like flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts are also beneficial, though the body must convert their form of omega-3, which is a less efficient process. For those who don't regularly eat fatty fish, a high-quality fish oil or algae-based supplement is often recommended by doctors as a way to ensure the body's fire department is always well-equipped. Myth number 1 debunked: cracking your knuckles causes arthritis. This is one of the most enduring medical myths passed down through generations. It's the kind of thing you hear from a parent or grandparent every time you produce that satisfying, if somewhat grating, pop from your knuckles. The fear is that you're somehow grinding your bones together or wearing out your joints. But thankfully, science has looked into this quite thoroughly, and we can say with a great deal of confidence that it is false. To understand why, we need to know what's actually happening when a knuckle cracks. Your joints are surrounded by a capsule filled with that synovial fluid we mentioned earlier. This fluid contains dissolved gases, primarily nitrogen. When you stretch or bend your finger to crack the knuckle, you are rapidly expanding the volume of the joint capsule. This sudden decrease in pressure causes the dissolved gases to come out of solution and form a bubble, which then quickly collapses or pops. The sound you hear is the bursting of that tiny gas bubble. It's a process called cavitation, and it's completely harmless to the joint structures. The most famous piece of evidence against this myth comes from a dedicated physician named Dr. Donald Unger. Annoyed by his mother's constant warnings, he conducted a personal experiment that lasted for 60 years. Every day, he cracked the knuckles on his left hand at least twice, while never cracking the knuckles on his right hand. After 6 decades of this, he had x-rays taken of both hands. The result? There was no more arthritis in his left hand than in his right, and in fact, he had no arthritis in either. His one-man study, for which he won a satirical but well-earned Ig Nobel Prize, is a perfect illustration of what larger, more formal studies have also concluded. While the habit might be annoying to those around you, you can rest assured that you are not causing any damage or giving yourself arthritis. Myth number 2 debunked: joint pain is an inevitable wear and tear problem you must live with. This is perhaps the most damaging myth of all, because it breeds a sense of fatalism and inaction. The idea that our joints are like mechanical parts with a fixed lifespan, and that once they start to hurt, it's a one-way street of decline, is not only depressing, it's scientifically inaccurate. As we've discussed, reframing osteoarthritis not as a passive wearing out, but as an active disease process involving faulty repair and inflammation is a game changer. It shifts the focus from what you've lost to what you can control, and you can control a great deal. While it's true that you cannot regrow the cartilage that has been lost, you can profoundly influence the environment of the joint. By managing the low-grade inflammation through nutrition, like ensuring you have enough omega-3 fatty acids, you can directly reduce the pain signals and slow down the enzymes that eat away at cartilage. Even more powerfully, you can change the forces acting upon the joint. Every joint in your body is supported by a network of muscles, ligaments, and tendons. When these muscles are strong, they act as personal shock absorbers, offloading a significant amount of the stress from the joint surface itself. Targeted exercise to strengthen the quadriceps, for example, is one of the most effective non-surgical treatments for knee osteoarthritis because strong thigh muscles take the burden off the knee joint. Finally, managing body weight is critical. For every 1 pound of body weight you lose, you reduce the peak force on your knees by about 4 pounds with every step you take. Losing just 10 pounds can feel like taking a 40-pound backpack off your knees. So, the idea that you must simply accept and live with the pain is false. It is a condition that can be actively and effectively managed through diet, targeted exercise, and weight management, dramatically improving function and quality of life. Myth number 3 debunked. If I take a high-dose bone formula pill, I'm covered. The supplement aisle can be a confusing place. You'll see bottles proclaiming maximum strength bone support or complete joint formula, often packed with enormous doses of a dozen different ingredients. It's tempting to believe that one of these comprehensive pills is a simple, one-stop solution. This more is better approach, however, often misunderstands the subtleties of human biology. Your body has sophisticated systems for regulating the absorption and use of nutrients, and it can be easily overwhelmed. For example, your intestines have a limited capacity to absorb calcium at any one time. If you take a supplement with 1,000 milligrams of calcium all at once, a large percentage of that may not be absorbed compared to taking 2 separate doses of 500 milligrams. It's like trying to force a river's worth of water through a garden hose. More importantly, this approach ignores the central theme of our entire discussion: synergy. The nutrients involved in bone and joint health work as a tightly integrated team. A pill that provides a massive dose of calcium but is low in vitamin D, vitamin K2, and magnesium is giving you a truckload of bricks but has forgotten to hire the masons, supply the mortar, and get the foreman on site. The raw material is there, but the system to use it properly is incomplete. This can be inefficient at best and potentially counterproductive at worst, as we discussed with the calcium paradox. A truly effective strategy is not about megadoses. It's about providing a consistent, balanced supply of all the key players. This is why a food-first approach is so heavily emphasized by medical experts. A diet rich in vegetables, healthy fats, and quality proteins provides these nutrients in the balanced, synergistic forms the body evolved to use. Supplements should be seen as a targeted way to fill specific, identified gaps in that diet, not as a replacement for it. True coverage comes from a holistic understanding of the system, not from the largest dose in a single pill. Beyond the bottle, the 2 most powerful medicines are not pills, while nutrition is the foundation. There are 2 other interventions that have such a profound impact on bone and joint health that they can rightly be called medicine: targeted movement and exercise. The first is weight-bearing exercise for bone health. Our bones are brilliantly adaptive, and they respond to one primary signal: stress. This is explained by something called Wolff's Law, a principle of physiology which states that bone grows and remodels in response to the forces that are placed upon it. When you engage in weight-bearing exercise, activities like walking, jogging, dancing, or lifting weights, you are putting mechanical stress on your skeleton. This stress sends a loud and clear signal to your bone-building cells, the osteoblasts, to get to work. It tells them to lay down new bone tissue and reinforce the structure to better handle that stress in the future. Inactivity sends the opposite signal. If the bones are not being stressed, the body interprets this as a sign that a strong skeleton is not needed, and the bone-resorbing osteoclasts become more dominant. So, movement is not just good for your muscles and heart. It is a direct instruction to your body to build stronger bones. Now, for joints, especially joints that are already arthritic and painful, the idea of exercise can be intimidating. There is a natural fear that moving a painful joint will only cause more damage. However, the exact opposite is true. This is the paradox of movement for osteoarthritis. Gentle, controlled motion is one of the best possible therapies. Remember that cartilage has no blood supply and gets its nutrients from the surrounding synovial fluid. The movement of the joint acts like a pump, squeezing old fluid out of the cartilage and allowing new, nutrient-rich fluid to seep in. Motion is literally what feeds the cartilage. Furthermore, exercise strengthens the muscles that surround and support the joint. These muscles act as a natural brace. When they are strong, they absorb impact and stabilize the joint, reducing the direct stress on the cartilage surfaces. Activities that are low impact are ideal. Swimming or water aerobics are wonderful because the buoyancy of the water supports your body weight. Cycling, either on a stationary or outdoor bike, is also excellent, as is Tai Chi, which improves balance, strength, and range of motion. The key is to start slow and listen to your body, but the message is clear: motion is lotion for the joints. When to talk to your doctor, red flags, and modern diagnostics. This conversation is designed to empower you with knowledge, but it is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Self-diagnosing and creating a high-dose supplement regimen on your own can be ineffective and potentially unsafe. The most important step in taking control of your bone and joint health is to have an informed conversation with your doctor. There are certain signs and symptoms that should be considered red flags, prompting you to make an appointment. These include a fracture that occurs from a very minor fall or bump, as this is a classic sign of underlying osteoporosis. A noticeable loss of height or the development of a stooped posture can also indicate compression fractures in the spine. For joints, a joint that suddenly becomes very painful, swollen, red, and warm to the touch needs immediate medical attention to rule out infection or other conditions like gout. Any persistent joint pain that limits your daily activities deserves a professional evaluation. When you do see your doctor, it helps to know what to expect. To assess your bone health, the gold standard diagnostic tool is a DEXA scan, which stands for Dual Energy X-ray Absorptiometry. It is a simple, painless, and very quick procedure that uses very low-dose X-rays to measure the mineral density of your bones, typically at the hip and spine. The result gives you and your doctor a clear picture of your bone health, allowing you to know if you have healthy bones, low bone mass, osteopenia, or osteoporosis. For diagnosing osteoarthritis, a doctor will typically start with a physical examination, checking your range of motion and identifying areas of tenderness. They may also order X-rays. While an X-ray can't see the cartilage itself, it can show a narrowing of the space between bones, which is a key indicator that the cartilage has worn thin. Demystifying this process is important. These are standard, effective diagnostic tools that provide the concrete information needed to create a personalized and effective management plan. Conclusion: your body's framework is built to last. As we've journeyed through this deep dive, a central theme has emerged. Your body is an interconnected system of breathtaking complexity and elegance. The health of your bones and joints isn't dependent on a single magic bullet, but on supporting that entire system. It requires providing the right building blocks, like calcium. It requires the master key to let those blocks in, which is vitamin D. It demands an intelligent traffic controller, vitamin K2, to ensure those materials get to the right construction site. It needs the strong collagen scaffolding provided by vitamin C and the master electrician, magnesium, to power the entire process. And finally, it benefits immensely from an internal fire department, in the form of omega-3 fatty acids, to keep inflammation in check. This knowledge is your power. It transforms you from a passive passenger to an active, informed co-pilot in the journey of your own health. The main conclusion we can draw is this: your health is in your hands, and it depends not on accepting myths, but on a timely dialogue with a doctor. The goal of this information is to prepare you for that conversation, so you can ask intelligent questions about your diet, your lifestyle, and whether targeted supplementation might be right for you. Remember that many age-related changes are not a final verdict, but a medical reality that has solutions and effective management strategies. Your body's framework was designed with an incredible capacity for resilience and repair. Taking care of it based on sound scientific knowledge is the most reliable strategy for ensuring you have a strong, active, and fulfilling life for many years to come.